We need to understand who the Jewish people are. We need to understand what Islam has to say about Judaism and the Jewish people. Zionism is a Quranic prophecy. Muslims have to recognize that. Muslims have to legitimize, accept, and acknowledge the existence of Israel. This is what they are fighting. The minute we do that, and the minute we teach that to our communities, we are going to see a shift. Because Jewish dignity has been undermined by the Arab world and the Muslim world. And that has to end. So in order to do that, become more human if you can't acknowledge the facts, So that is one path. And to the Westerners, I also say, preserve what you have in the West. If you are an immigrant, just ask a simple question. Can you go back to the countries that you come from? Yemen, Syria, Where are your rights in those countries? Uplift our country. Our country needs everybody to wish it well, and then to be a blessing to our country.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of East to West, and today we're speaking to Soraya Deen. She's a lawyer, an activist, and also a founder of the Muslim Women Speaker and an executive board member of AMMWAC, MWAC. Hello, Soraya.
Hey, hello.
Let's start with your story, because I see lots of things here. You're an activist, you're also a lawyer, and you're also, someone who speaks to women and empowers women. How did it all start?
I was practicing law very peacefully. When my son, who was 7 years in 2017, was bullied, called a terrorist after, of course, 9/11. And that led me to the social justice work I do today, because I felt very responsible for the world that I want my children to grow up in. And there in Los Angeles at that time, I sought out interfaith partners. And this is very critical for all times. When something happens, we need the broader community to come together. And there I met a lot of Jewish friends and built deep bonds, relationships, and we did a lot of work together. So that's where it all began for me.
And you're speaking about the events that followed 9/11. So that's what ignites in you the activism against Islamophobia, against antisemitism as well?
Absolutely. So after 9/11, I was doing my work, portraying Islam in a good light, portraying Muslims in a good light. And then I realized that Muslim women were not treated with dignity and equality within the community. So at the intersection of religion, there came the study of gender for me. So I've been fighting all of that. And then, of course, after October 7th, we were addressing anti-Semitism way before that. And after October 7th, of course, we formed coalitions of women and partnerships to address the growing anti-Semitism and hatred.
Usually when people talk about this, they drive criticism toward them. Is that something that happened to you? How did you deal with that, with all the, backlash that sometimes comes with this activism?
Yeah, there are hard days, there are great days, and there are the best days. And I believe that our commitment is to do the right thing. And then we just continue. And I am a very spiritual person, Balig. So I feel the biggest war happens in our minds. So we have to first conquer that. And when you conquer that, you start your day with renewed energy, renewed hope, renewed possibility. And in your heart of hearts, we have to be a blessing into this world. And am I going to be somebody who promotes hatred, or am I going to be somebody who calls on each of us to care about each other?
Oh, that sounds great, definitely. And how does that actualize in reality? I mean, which steps you're taking, which, projects you're doing in order to advance your cause?
So we are a coalition of Muslim women, and I run the Muslim Women Speakers Bureau. We have 25 Muslim women in our Speakers Bureau from all across the world. So we talk on the most challenging topics: anti-Semitism, hate, extremism, patriarchy, gender injustices. So that is one aspect of our work. And I'm also a community organizer. A community organizer is somebody who teaches leadership skills in difficult times, not when everything is good, and teach people how to bring people together. So we focus on not the issue, but who are my people. And there is a methodology. I just, in my final studies at Harvard on public leadership, so we study social justice movements. Like if you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, at that time, people had zero resources. It was a David Goliath situation. And how did the Montgomery bus boycott, why was it a success? And it was because people were committed. So we learn and teach these skills so that in today's challenging times, people understand we can't do this alone. We need to build community.
We're talking right now, just a few weeks after what happened at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. You have been very active and vocal about what happened then, and this is part of your work,
Yes.
as I understand. What do Muslim women and Muslim community in general has to say here? Which role do leaders in the Muslim community needs to take after such a thing, and in general about anti-Semitism, do you think?
So, the whole Muslim community, most of them condemned it, and we are not happy with the condemnation. We want a plan moving forward to say these are the things we won't do. And one would be, we're not going to teach and preach hatred from our mosques. That is our primary call. And second, we're going to strengthen our bonds and community relationships with our Jewish, Christian and interfaith partners. And that is not just to have dialogue, but to come together and address the right of Israel to exist. We Muslims, we believe that conversation has to be on the table now. Don't just come to us and say, we have an organization, we talk about Jewish-Muslim partnerships. That is behind us now. That has not worked. So we are more aggressive, and we have some new tools in our arsenal. For instance, in this particular visit to Israel, we have dwelt deeper into understanding how religion can be the problem and how it can also be the source of the solution. And we have studied deeper, and we are going deeper and deeper into this, the commonalities between Islam and Judaism, and the Muslims' call in the Quran to recognize the Jewish state. Zionism is a Quranic prophecy. We need to teach that to our children.
Lots of people don't agree with that, especially when you invoke the Muslim faith, when you come and talk about Zionism. Can you elaborate on this issue? Because I see that the bond between the Muslims and Israel, for you, needs to be much, much stronger.
Yes. So I believe that Zionism today is used as a slur even against us. And that didn't happen overnight. This is something that has gone on since the early 1900s, the pan-Arab movement, the hatred for the Jews who wanted a homeland. And this kind of teaching has seeped in through to our communities systematically. The role of the Muslim Brotherhood has to be emphasized here. And what is important, Balig, is to know these narratives are advanced by the Arab world. 15 to 20% of Muslims are Arab. The majority of Muslims are from Asia. We have not heard we have not been heard. Who are the majority Muslims? What is their take on that? So there has been tremendous amount of failures on both sides, and there have been tremendous successes. For instance, the Jewish people have not told their story in a way that people understand why that land is theirs, how it is theirs. And it has been always like struggling to be in that land, when in fact it is told in the Quran. Why weren't we even told, this is what your Quran says, what is your problem? We had to figure that out. And for me, it's a personal journey. Why are the Jewish people fighting for a homeland? Why can't the Muslims say, this is yours? I mean, see how Israel is surrounded by large land masses, and we are just fighting for this little piece of land. It doesn't make sense. It's not human, and it is not a blessing.
And it's interesting that you're mentioning the percentage of the Arabs among Muslims in general in the world. Do you think there's a difference between how Muslims or Arab Muslims view the Palestinian cause and how other Muslims do it?
We are from the Indus Valley civilization. We come from the land of Buddha. We come from the land of Gandhi, So we bring a different energy to this conflict. And we don't have in the books that we need to hate the Jews. We don't have it in the books that in our national policy that we have to oppose the Jewish homeland. So, but there's a caveat here. Things are changing rapidly because the hatred from the Arab side of the world has now traveled to the South Asia, and we are trying to fight on both ends, and we have to do more.
It still does not have relations with Pakistan, with Indonesia. These things have been talked about, but it's still not there. Why do you think is that?
Because Palestinianism has taken has got a place so elevated. Next to being a Muslim, you're a Palestinian, and Palestinianism, without any levels of scrutiny, has become a rallying call. And yes, you're right, but also know that Pakistan is going to join the Abraham Accords. An Indonesian Prime Minister made a rallying call at the UN when he said security for the Jewish people have to be guaranteed as well. So there are shifts happening, thankfully, to the leadership of our President, Mr. Donald Trump. We are very, very practically looking at this issue.
Do you think that in 2026 Pakistan could be on the list and join the Abraham Accords actually?
Yes, very much so, because we have people who are journalists in Pakistan writing about this. Our delegation, Balig, has about 80% of it is Pakistani. So the people have to go back and raise their voices. Things don't happen in a vacuum. You have to fight for what you believe in. I don't know whether 2026 is too early to say, but things are shifting.
And next to Pakistan, there's a country that has been, to say the least, troublesome for Israel. Iran, of course, it's your neighbor. It's Pakistan's neighbor, excuse me. And the women there are suffering, and part of your activism is also to empower the women of Iran. How does that work? I mean, what do you actually know when you talk to women from Iran about their situation?
I mean, after Masha Amini, lots of things came up. And I think last year's Nobel laureate was an Iranian lady. I forget her name, Shireen. Anyway, she was talking about how, as a little girl, she watched her mother have a little bag. She was going to the prison to see her brother, and every day she'll see in the list whether her brother was hanged or not. That is the level of rights the Iranians have in Iran, and the desecration of women and their freedoms is obvious. So you bring that to the fray of how they treat the women. I mean, asking a woman to wear a hijab and making it mandatory and taking her to prison. I don't know how Iran has got by with committing such level of atrocities to its own citizens, and then emboldening terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas to fight Israel particularly.
And do you speak to women from Iran? Do you know Iranian Americans that are working inside Iran and maybe empowering the women there?
Absolutely, yes. Masha Alinejad, then my friend Shireen Tabor, she's an Iranian Christian living in U.S. We have a lot of friends who we work with who are Iranian, and we have first-hand stories about what's happening to Iran.
And which steps do they take?
Highlighting the atrocities at this moment, and then calling for the United States government to have stronger policies against Iran.
And are you satisfied with the current government policy towards Iran?
It should be way more stricter in terms of, we are a democracy. So 4 years you have one regime, one government, they upset everything. Then we have another government that comes, it has to build up, and not only build up, but also fix what was broken. So that's what we are going through in America. I think also that there should be wider calls from the international world, like Europe has to do more, not only the United States.
And basically, the issue of Israel also comes with that, because when you talk about women's rights in Iran, you talk about Western values, you also talk about the normalization with Israel. Do you think that the Iranian people are ready for such a thing, or do you think that actually the Iranians are against Israel, even if they want to break free from the regime that they are under right now?
You know, I would say unequivocally the Iranian friends that we know of and who are reporting to us about what's happening, the Iranian citizens are standing very strongly for Israel at this time, because for them, they are unable to take their governments out because they are dictators, they are ruthless. So anything that Israel does to call and hold Iran accountable, it reflects back to their freedoms.
What do you tell the Iranian regime that invokes every time the religion of Islam in order to justify what they are doing inside Iran and toward Israel and toward the region in general?
Terrible. They don't represent Muslims and Islam, because I think in the 79, when Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa against Salman Rushdie, a wing of Islam died that day, because it suppressed not only the Muslims, it gave a free pass to radical Islamists and terrorists to take down anybody with a dissenting view. And the Khomeini was not held accountable at that time. And since then, he has had a free pass to do what he has done. And these people have desecrated Islam.
But many do think that this is actually the real Islam, and they are supporters of what the Iranian regime is doing, even in the West. Do you see that? Do you understand how that comes, that even Westerners are saying right now, or at least some of them, that the Iranian regime is right, and this is how it should be, and we stand with Iran, and we stand against Israel?
I think that's a lot of media reporting also. Yeah, and we have to be very careful. As far as I know, there's a lot of people calling out Iran at the grassroots level. But we need more governments to do that and hold Iran accountable.
People here sometimes have the picture of Khamenei in protests. In Sydney, for example, just a few months before the Bondi Beach attack. That happened also somewhere else in the U.S., did you think that there are some people that are fallen, if we can call it this way, to the Iranian way of thinking?
I think it's a lot of propaganda that's happening. And you know, these movements that are opposing Israel at this time, they are well funded to do this. And they are recruited to do this. So yeah, there is some of it. But overall, in my association with my Iranian friends, and they are very optimistic that change is coming.
Do you think that Iran is actually the number one threat, or maybe the country or the regime that actually is the one standing against what you believe in? Or do you think there are other countries? Some people talk about Turkey, some others talk about Qatar as well, for example. Where do you stand on that?
I think that is the axis of evil, all three of the countries that you mentioned. Yes.
Because of their ties with the Muslim Brotherhood?
Definitely the ties with the Muslim Brotherhood, and the how they have infiltrated America is case in point that they have a sinister plan and they have succeeded in many ways. And I think in the United States, the Trump administration has really understood the gravity of this. But still, I feel we have a level of suicidal empathy and suicidal democracy where we are still going through the Constitution and all the rights that need to be upheld. But we need to be a little bit more aggressive.
But what do you think people in the West should be cautious about when it comes to the soft power, let's go this way, of Qatar, of Turkey, of other players that are against what you do believe in?
I think people in the West need to be more educated. They need to know that there's an evil behind this. And there's a modus operandi where these Muslim Brotherhood-led organizations in the United States have systematically taken over our societies. And I say this with authenticity because we're working with some groups of peoples, particularly Jewish organizations, where we see there is a face to this, Balig. There's a face to this. They are extremists. They represent like CARE, one of the most extremist organizations in the United States, who call them a civil rights organization. But when October 7th happened, their very own president, Nihad Awad, said that was resistance. So you can imagine how low the start of the conversation is for us. And they operate very, very masterfully. They have a face to who they are. There are people who report to them, but who are on the face of it doing interfaith, doing education, doing refugee work. And when it comes to anything that has to be done with the Jewish people, they cancel out. They boycott.
But as an American, you also, I assume, believe in the Constitution and the First Amendment. And a lot of people invoke that argument when we talk about, restricting the Muslim Brotherhood or CARE, as you have mentioned, this specific organization. How do you balance that? I mean, how should the government balance that?
I'm a lawyer myself. I'll defend the Constitution to my death. But there comes a time when you have to understand public interest and individual rights. And leaders are constantly balancing that. I feel the protests that have happened have infringed on the public interests. I am not safe because you choose to protest. So that is not acceptable. I am a marcher myself. I march a lot. When Dr. King launched these marches, what he said was, at the heart of the protest should be nonviolence, not hatred. So we can't let these people go loose based on to really milk our constitution when it suits them, and then behave this way. Because today societies are being attacked and communities are under threat. Law enforcement is stretched thin in the United States. And look at the Middle Eastern countries. All the Palestinian protests have been banned. No? Our leaders have to take some, personally I believe, public interest has to outweigh individual rights at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting that the protests for Palestinians don't happen actually in the Arab countries, or rarely they do. So I assume if we continue talking about the issue of balancing civil rights, individual rights, as you've mentioned, and the public interest, the recent developments in both Australia, for example, and also something is happening in the UK regarding new restrictions on speech, hate speech, if we call it this way, symbols presented in those protests, of course, gun laws and all of that. Are you in favor of that? Do you think that the West is waking up to this new reality that they need to deal with?
They better, because why has the West borrowed this conflict? It's a Middle East conflict. Look at what happened in Australia, and the several of the preachers in the mosques who were preaching, spewing hatred towards the Jewish people. There is, where I come from, Sri Lanka, it's a Buddhist country. That we call it dependent arising. One exists because of another. Hate was allowed to proliferate in Australia. So in England, and we are really reaping the seeds that were planted. And I think these countries have to wake up, because they're not helping the Palestinians. I met a lot of Palestinians in this trip, and they feel the diaspora Palestinians are causing more harm to them.
Well, I heard that argument from many Palestinians that are in the diaspora that think that what the protests are doing is actually harming the Palestinians inside Gaza, because this is exactly what Hamas wants to see and wants to hear after all. So what's your message, if we can maybe also finish with this, to the Western governments and to Westerners in general regarding what they need to do for empowering women, and regarding Israel as well, how things should work in the coming decade or so?
Oh, to the Westerners in particular, I think we need education. We need to understand who the Jewish people are. We need to understand what Islam has to say about Judaism and the Jewish people. Zionism is a Quranic prophecy. Muslims have to recognize that. Muslims have to legitimize, accept, and acknowledge the existence of Israel. This is what they are fighting. The minute we do that, and the minute we teach that to our communities, we are going to see a shift. Because Jewish dignity has been undermined by the Arab world and the Muslim world. And that has to end. So in order to do that, become more human if you can't acknowledge the facts, So that is one path. And to the Westerners, I also say, preserve what you have in the West. If you are an immigrant, just ask a simple question. Can you go back to the countries that you come from? Yemen, Syria, Where are your rights in those countries? Uplift our country. Our country needs everybody to wish it well, and then to be a blessing to our country.
Well, Soraya Deen, thank you so much. You're the founder of Muslim Women Speaker, an activist and a lawyer, and definitely lots of things that you're doing nowadays. Thank you so much for your work and for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for uplifting our voices.
Thank you.
Thank you.